Hey, we got an excellent episode here on Spainer and Riggs, episode number 6. We got some great interviews. Talk with Kaden DeCoteau, who's the number 132-pound wrestler, century champion. Great chat with him. We also talked at Class B basketball, getting ready for the big state tournament. Recap, Class A, both boys and girls. I came through with some big wins. We talked a little bit about that. We're going to talk some GOAT soccer talk. We're going to see who the best soccer player is. And then to wrap it all up, Maggie Fricke, the star champion, the 8th grader from Mine High girls basketball. It's a great episode. Here we go. Here we are in the high school segment here on Spainer and Riggs. We're excited. We've got an action-packed part of this episode. And it kicks off with a great interview with state wrestling champion at 132 weight class, Kaden DeCoteau. We had a great chat with him from Century High School. Here it is.
Hey, this is Spainer from Spainer Riggs Show, and we are here with Kaden DeCoteau from Century High School Wrestling State Champion. How's it going, Kaden?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. I had a little fun at State A. It seemed like you were down there. You had a little fun at State A as well, huh?
Yeah, pretty fun. Would have been a little bit better if could have gotten that win in girls, but yeah.
That was an interesting game. It was just kind of a grind that just never kind of transpired for Century a little bit there. 50-game win streak, and I think the longer it went on, they just got a little tighter and a little tighter. But
yeah.
So
I had some really good shots.
Yeah. So tell us here, you're the state champion, 132-pound bracket for Century. You tell us about that state tournament, and did you expect to win state? Was it surprising for you? I mean, how'd that go?
So I came in at the number 1 seed, and I'd beaten everyone pretty much in my bracket, so I felt pretty good about it. The only thing I was really concerned about, though, like for the most part, was my semis match, because the last 3 years I ended up losing in the semis, and it was just like something in my head that like I just had to get through. I barely did. I ended up winning 7-6, but I got through it, so that was pretty nice.
There's something about that kind of getting over that hump mentally, for athletes. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. It just kind of sticks in there with you. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we had Justin Racine, head coach at Modern High, and I've learned how the wrestling gig goes, and there's just so much for an athlete that I have an appreciation after learning a couple buddies and understanding it. But maybe explain to our listeners the dynamic of preparing for wrestling, especially at the state championship. I mean, you talk about strength and skill. You also have to make sure your weight and dedication to your nutrition, and then there's a mental aspect of it as well. But just tell us, how you prepared, for the state tournament, and just prepared for the journey of the season of wrestling this year.
Yes, I'd say a big thing is getting your mind right. Like, I envision myself at the highest stages, so when I'm there, it's easy to not get nervous. And then you just have to, there's a confidence you have to have in yourself that I personally build through how I work and my work ethic. And I think that's where most people would say they get it from, most wrestlers. But if you work so hard, then you just feel like no one's worked harder than you. And you build confidence in yourself. So that's how mentally I get ahead of it. And then weight cut, I just try, at the beginning of the season, it's kind of tough for me to get down. But once I get down, especially this year, I do a pretty good job of maintaining my weight, keeping it, putting the right things into my body so I'm able to go out there and perform good. And yeah, it's just, it's very time-consuming things, and it takes a lot of motivation, but if you want it, it comes kind of easy.
Absolutely. I just know a couple of wrestlers that had to, don't get to enjoy sometimes Thanksgiving or Christmas dinners depending on how the season goes. So, like I said, I enjoy those traditions for sure.
So, tell us, at a Century Bismarck, Century Mandan, Century Minot duel. Tell us the difference when you're wrestling for like your team versus wrestling for yourself in an individual tournament. How does that feel?
Duels, I would hands down say I get way more nervous for. Like, I hype myself up just because you got your team on your back. You want to try and help them out as much as you can, and then you're in your face with your teammates. Cheering them on the sideline. It's just a way more energetic feeling, and it's nerve-wracking sometimes in those tight ones. But compared to that, to individuals where it's like, I just think like I got this, like just calm. And compared to duels, it's not. I get really nervous during duels. That's something I've been trying to work on through the season, but that's the biggest difference, and I feel like a lot of people have that problem.
Let me take that a step further. You ever get in a duel where you know that you're going to have to get a bonus point win for your team? Like if you're an individual tournament, you just got to outscore the guy and move on to the next bracket, right? But if you're in a duel, knowing that your team might lose matches down the road, they're going to need you to get the 6-point pin or the 5-point major decision, correct? Versus just winning your match and getting 3 points for your team.
Yeah, that something. You almost like. That's also another nerve-wracking thing about it. Sometimes is like, it's like, well, if I win, like I still feel like I lost if I didn't do enough. Sometimes I like to put pressure on myself during those moments because I feel like I perform best when there's a little pressure on me, and I'm really good on top in my opinion, and so I feel I can pin anyone. So you just kind of got to go out there with the mentality, tell yourself that you're gonna do this, and hopefully it gets done. Otherwise, you just gotta move on and try and build from it.
So you're a junior right now, and obviously after your junior season, everybody starts all eyes on about what your future is and all those type of things. But not disclosing what may or may not be. But is wrestling at the college level, is that definitely a goal of yours? Is that do you set yourself goals really high to compete at the next level?
Yeah, it's been something I've wanted to do since when I was young, and it's like I've had 2 goals, win a state championship and get to the next level, and I got one of them down, and that's the next one, and it's looking like I'm gonna have that possibility if I keep working hard. So it's exciting.
Good deal.
So there's a little different one, but Gorillas, they brought you up. I mean, everyone knows the Matt Pack name. They're super dominant youth club. Tell us how the Gorillas got you to this point, and kind of that progression.
I just felt like my coaches there, they were able to take time in me, and I always knew I was gonna be a Century guy. My mom teaches that Century, and Gorillas coaches that Century, and their head coaches help out there. So it's like, well, if I'm gonna be there, I might as well get under my coaches. And they just really were able. They saw I wanted to be successful from a young age, and they pushed me, and it's what I needed, and it got me here.
Good stuff. Well, all right, Kaden, we appreciate you taking your time and all the dedication. And like I said, usually when somebody wins a state championship, the future becomes extremely bright. So we'll definitely be following along, and wish you nothing best. And hopefully we'll have you back again. Hopefully next year after he wins another one.
And we'll text old Evan 40 for you and put a good word in for you here at Minot State. How's that?
All right, sounds good.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a great chat with Kaden. He was really exciting. Too bad we couldn't keep the cameras rolling about how his mom teaches there too as well, and having that dynamic of my mom and my Nana, they taught my mom, and so I knew that dynamic too, but that would have been pretty cool to get that in there. But,
I know, yeah, that's some interesting things.
No, but he's certainly a good kid. But no, here in the high school segment, we want to talk about what's happening here this weekend. The big Granddaddy Mall, the Class B. Tons of excitement. We did, pretty much see a lot of favorites and people we kind of expected to be there. But boy, it's shoring up to be one of the best tournaments. And, I was lucky to watch Nick Holberg's PSP network. They covered a lot of the Region 6. And I know you were, following along it across the board. But what are your thoughts about the overall field going into the Class B? Just to start, getting some teams in excitement. And what are your thoughts?
It's going to be interesting. There was just a lot of upsets.
Yeah.
A lot of upsets, so it's kind of, I think that it's very top heavy versus, kind of a balanced field. But, I look at, 4 wins in Stanley. 4 wins is going to come out on top there, more than likely. Stanley will have to be absolutely perfect to hang.
Sure.
Jaden broke the all-time 4 wins scoring record recently. He can just score at will on the top of the top teams.
Yep.
Kindred playing Bowman. We saw the Kindred girls. The Kindred guys come from the toughest region. Region 1, it's got Central Cass and it's got Enderlin. Enderlin's got the Hurlburt kid that signed with Colorado. You got Olsen at Kindred. They're probably going to get past Bowman would be my guess, And then we got the other 2 games are really interesting. Shiloh is seeded 3. Ryan's unseeded. And I told you, I thought Ryan would be unseeded, and that would be the one that you do not want.
For sure.
So they get Shiloh, which there's another little side tangent to this game, which I think is interesting. So when I'm at these games, and Ryan's winning or Shiloh's beating teams, the opposing fans chant real Class B, real Class B.
Of course.
They don't like these private schools.
No,
so
they don't.
I don't think it's an accident. The 2 private schools, one's getting
Absolutely.
eliminated right away. But
Especially tell anybody from Velva, I'll tell you that. Anybody from Velva that is like 50 years old all the way down to whatever, they'll say the same thing.
Oh yeah, they don't like Ryan.
No.
It's crazy interesting. Ryan's unseeded. Shiloh seed 3. Mm-hmm. Shiloh was not the number 1 team in their region. Ryan was the number 1 in Region 6. Ryan has beaten Shiloh already. So it's interesting. But Wilton Wing had beaten Shiloh. Remember, I picked Shiloh to win that game.
Yeah.
And there's some side info there too, because I was driving down, had to gas up in Wilton, run into the Wilton guys. They're giving me business about the podcast predictions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, so I don't know. It's weird. They kind of got revenge on Wilton, and you're just worried. England, their best player is playing on a torn ACL, MCL, and PCL. He's just he's just playing it out. I don't know. Ryan said, they told me during the girls' region tournament, they're on a mission. They're going to state. They're getting to the top 4, and they're just going to let it play out and see how well they do. So, and I haven't doubted them since. They throttled everyone since.
For sure.
I think Ryan gets past Shiloh, but that game could go like 6 overtimes. It's going to come down to some crazy shot. I just like, the Feller, Ian Johnson, and then you got the 2 point guard deal there with Jet Lundeen, and Merck. I don't know. I'm picking the upset, and that same game was the only upset I picked in the girls' state B, but obviously Unland and Thompson got hurt for MLS in the first half, so we have no idea what would have happened there. But then you've got Lamore versus Grafton. And
I'm kind of speaking a lot about Grafton just every once in a while, just kind of poking them out a little bit.
Grafton's a 3 seed in their region. Lamore is a 2 seed in their region. Lamore's seeded higher. They're the 4. Grafton's the 5. I'm going Grafton.
Okay.
I'm going Grafton. And then I think we get the matchup that we wanted in girls. That didn't happen because 4 wins got clipped in the region championship game. We get the 4 wins Kindred matchup. And then this one's really interesting to me because you've got that total stud at Four Winds, just like Enderlin, just like Central Cass, and Kindred knocked off Enderlin in the last game of the regular season. They knocked off Central Cass, they knocked off Enderlin, and they have been able to neutralize that stud player. They are the number one team in the state defensively. Four Winds is the number one team in the state offensively. Oh man!
And Four Winds brings a crowd. I mean, it is. I mean, it's
so does Kindred.
Yeah,
it is going to be.
It's and I tell you though, like the B is very what's the word? Unforgiving. I mean, it is unbelievable how momentum swings in that dome being absolutely jam packed. That kids get a little tight, holding the ball a little light. I mean, those crucial missed free throws become critical with the magnifying glass. And so, I mean, but historically, Four Winds has done well in the dome. I mean, they've got it done there before. So I wonder if that maybe plays on their side. I mean, I watched the Velva Ryan game, and I just felt like Brody Bosch was like a surgeon as a coach. And it just seemed like at the right time, made substitutions, he got the matchups he wanted. And, because it was kind of a bit of a historic thing. You text anybody about Velva. When was the last time Velva, I think, was in the region championship? Some people were saying like 67 was the last time. And they've never been to state. So I don't think they've ever been to state. So, we knew it was going to be a little insurmountable, but wasn't there a stretch?
They beat Ryan at Ryan earlier this year. And I think Velva had some golden years with, they had Ryan Kraft and Charles Colby and Carl Lade playing for them. They were quite formidable, in the 90s. So I don't know how far they got, but I do know that they had a triple threat that was really dominant. And that might have been the last time they were good at basketball, but I do know that they were quite good in that era. But the question is, it's going to be a tight game. Four Winds has played with huge leads the whole season. Kindred comes from the best region in the state where they have been in tight games the whole season. And, Four Winds has been in the dome. They're comfortable in the dome.
Yep.
Kindred's comfortable in tight situations, So
you're saying like if Four Winds gets out to an early lead, it's game over, or if the game gets tight and Kindred can linger around, and then all of a sudden, does Four Winds can they handle the pressure of hanging on at the end? I mean,
I'm going Kindred. I think Kindred beats them in overtime.
Wow.
That's what I think.
That's gonna be crazy prediction.
And I know a lot of the people out there think I love Kindred, this and that. I'll explain to you what I think about Kindred. Obviously, they're an unbelievable girls team. They ran the table undefeated. Their guys' team has come through a gauntlet of a region, and they've knocked off the best players, that there are in the state, right, to get to where they're at. So their teams are very good. But for anyone that wants to argue, their entire student section shows up to every game.
I'm excited for that portion of it.
That is just interesting to see. And
the TikTok traction on something like that. I tell you, it's pretty bold.
So this is going to be interesting because I put something out about Kindred being number one in the state, number one student section, right? Minot has came up huge at State A, right? Huge. So I put it out there. Will Kindred show up in Minot? Because everyone knows that it's 200 miles or 250 miles to Fargo, but from Fargo to Minot, it's like 500 miles.
Oh, absolutely. That is 100%.
So we'll see if Kindred comes to Minot and shows up. But I put that question out there, and the Kindred faithful butchered me with comments saying they'll be here in Minot.
Well, my times even working with the Class B back 15, 16 in those type years, I do know once you get past the first round, it's kind of like some people are kind of waiting and seeing, because you're hopeful your team, but if they get that first win that Thursday night, it's school's canceled on Friday, and we'll see you all in the dome. Like, it gets to be one of those. So it's going to be absolutely. And then the problem is those who regret not getting their tickets early, they're up in the bleachers, up in the nosebleeds, and wishing they were down on the main floor. So
Yeah.
I think those aspects are going to be big. Do you like Four Winds? Like, is there anybody like that you don't have a whole lot of high hopes on, but could make a run, be a spoiler? I mean, a little bit of an underdog. I mean, like you said, could Shiloh go on a run? Do you think
Shiloh's got length.
And Grafton. I mean, does anybody who can have the capabilities?
Grafton's good too.
Can anybody make a? I mean, I don't want to be.
It's crazy, man.
Just to be like, oh, if somebody like that surprises, can be like, oh, I'm not totally
I think
surprised.
Grafton's a notch off. I look at Ryan can score with Kindred. Ryan can score with Four Winds.
For sure.
They've got offensive. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Shiloh is long. Yeah. They are long, and their long guys shoot the three. Mm-hmm. So if they're hitting it, there's nothing you can do. I don't care who you are. They're just shooting over you. So if they catch fire, and they caught fire against Wilton. I mean, they were up like 18-4. Mm-hmm. It was pretty. It was just like bam, bam, bam. They're just hitting them. They did struggle against the press. With Wilton's press. Wilton was little. They were like mites trying to run him off the court. But,
yep.
So we'll move to Class A.
Absolutely. Switching gears, Class A. Very, very historic season for, of course, Minot High. The guys have really, in the last, 4 or 5 years, have really kind of been there, contenders, kind of an expectation. Winchesky's got his boys rolling at the right time, just kind of the culture. The girls... Boy, oh boy. I mean, it was remarkable to see the girls' team and how they were able to do what they did, especially considering Century, pick Century and doing that deal. And, I'm taking nobody else but
50
Century.
50-game win streak, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But thoughts on the girls' side? I caught the last championship game and watching how exciting that is. I mean, geez, to see... Maggie and the eighth graders, just rise up to the occasion. There's one thing to have skill, right? Because kids can shoot the ball well and do that. But, kids that are 13, 14 years old are just, from a maturity standpoint, aren't there yet, across the board. And here you are, young girl just completely, being lights out. And it just empowers the rest of them. And then coaching staff to bring that culture in when you got 18-year-olds and 14-year-olds playing on the team. I mean, it's remarkable. But thoughts on the girls' side first. Like, what were your thoughts on just seeing that historic run by Minot High girls?
To me, in the girls' side, Minot and Century were just better than everybody else. Mm-hmm. I thought that was interesting. Lily Bell and Maggie Fricke, their ball handling was impressive. I think Minot maybe comes back to the pack if the ball handling at Minot wasn't such, at another level. Logan Nissly is the best player in the state, and there's Dusher at Kindred, who might be a little bit better of an athlete.
Nissly, didn't she recently commit here too as well?
Nissly just committed to Nebraska. Dusher's going to Alabama to play softball. But Nissly is smooth. She's smooth. She can score. She can defend. And they were down late, and she gets a steal and a layup and all. It was like, okay, this game's over. It's over. And then 3 steal, gets fouled. You're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? The gap goes from 7 to 3, like that. Century just far better than everyone else. They look like a college team. Like they got a star, and then everyone else is really good. It looked to me like Minot, versus those East teams. They just got 2 girls that can just get through any press on the Maggie. Can just get through any press on the dribble. Lily Bell is unconscious shot. Then you've got Lundy, and you got all the girls. The rest of the Minot team is really solid, really good. I mean, they are nails.
Absolutely.
Not. I just think that team was primed to beat Century when they've got those guards. That the one thing I thought was interesting was Lily Bell, and she could shoot that 3. Kind of sacrificed a little bit for the good of the team, and she played underneath posting up and bodying and banging, a different kind of game than I had seen her play in the past. And she goes back and forth depending on the matchup. But state championship game, I mean, she really went down low most of the game. And she just kept pulling rebounds down, bringing it to Fricke. So, I don't know. Very interesting.
Good deal. Well, we were pretty excited about the girls. Now switching over to the boys. Another historic run for Minot High. Those last 2 games particularly were
the
just
first round.
I mean,
they were down 7,
yes.
with just over a minute to go in overtime, and they hit a 3, and and then they were down 2 with just 8 seconds left. When Chesky's kid, freshman, he's on the free throw line, he makes the first, misses the second. They come up with the the rebound.
Yep. He's young too.
Yeah, I mean, he's a freshman. He's very, very good. I'll give you the interesting take on Class A. If you rewind back 10, 12 years ago, whatever, the East could score. The West was half court, grind it, defensive teams, and then historically it maybe wasn't good enough to get through the Eastern skill level, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Now you have Western coaches that have moved to Fargo and are coaching the Eastern teams. The East teams now are all in these 50 games, 50 to 45, grinded out defensive. And Minot gets through the number 1 ranked team in the state defensively, Cheyenne, and the number 2 ranked team in the state defensively, West Fargo Packers. It's interesting how it flipped, because the West right now, the games are like 70 to 60 and 80 to 62 and 80 to 75, or whatever. And so the 2 philosophies switched. And I thought it was, going in, could Minot play? We just talked about this with Kindred and Four Winds. Could they play in that tight, uncomfortable game against those good defensive teams in the East? And they just did.
They did.
But Minot looked to me, I saw this at the WDA, and then I saw it again at State. They just look more fit.
They did, actually.
So, when it came down to those
was
games.
really good, and, Gunville and Lissette, the junior. It was incredible to watch. It just feels like, as the game got tighter, they just started to just flex their muscles and just bear down at the right times. And, key thing too is hitting your free throws. Down the stretch, whenever you need to make those types of things, especially at the high school level, because 4 free throws could be the difference in terms of how it was. But it was just exciting to watch, especially down the stretch. How they were able to battle down, and the other thing too is, they stayed disciplined. That was the biggest thing: staying disciplined, not getting into foul trouble. That was a kicker. And that's a big game changer for all that stuff, for all those games when they run. And then, those things matter in state tournaments. And that's a big part of it too.
The Minot team has all these different dynamics. And Dissette to me was the player of the tournament. I had Wentz as the player of the game for the state championship game. But I have Gunville as the pulse of that team, and he hit those threes he was hitting it. You just in key moments, he came up with the biggest threes, and then the one at the end of the game against Cheyenne, to save their season basically. So, but great state A. I loved every minute of it. It was awesome. The Minot student section was alive. It was more than double any other student section at State A. I thought that was pretty cool. And they were savvy.
Yep.
Not as organized as the Kindred section.
Oh boy, here he comes.
No, I'll tell you this. No. Listen to this.
You and your wife would buy a house. They don't live in Kindred.
They don't talk about their cheers. They just happen.
Oh, geez.
Now Minot, super savvy, and their leader is really, really good. And he goes right down. The line's big. They had a big section. And he goes down the line and explains what's coming. And they do good cheers at the right time. They are definitely the most savvy student section.
The North
But I do like how Kindred, it just happens. If something happens, it's automatic. They're very organized. It's been part of their ingrained in them for many years. Like Texas A&M baseball, ball 5 chant or whatnot.
Yep.
But
okay, well, that was really good. The big part that we want to wrap up the high school section is we have a real treat. we got an interview with the big-time star, as I mean big-time, she's an 8th grader, in Maggie Fricke with the Minot Midgets, Minot High Girls State Champion. Here it is.
Hey, we're here, Spainer Rig Show, high school segment with Maggie Fricke, newly crowned State A girls basketball champion. How's it going?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
Good. So I got to ask a question. So I watched the game, and they were pressing you guys and pressing you guys and pressing you guys. And it seemed like 9 times out of 10, your answer to their press was to just sprint, dribble all the way around them and get into onto the other half of the offensive end of the court. And so I was watching this game, and you guys were down 14-5 early, and then you chipped away, you came back, and then you got a lead at halftime. And as the game went on, I was really sitting there, I was going, man, is she going to have enough legs to finish this game? Because you played just a ton of minutes. And in the second half, when Century started to maybe panic a little bit because you guys still led, they pressed more and more and more, and you just continually dribbled out of it. Tell me, how did you have the legs to get through that? And I could tell, because when I interviewed you after the boys' game, you were completely spent. So I think that was a combination of physically and emotionally, and probably riding the guys' game as well. But tell me about your preparation for this, and and how you had enough juice to get through that game.
Well, I knew it was our last game, and I had to go full out, and I was resting my legs all weekend just for that game, and I just knew I had to give it all my all to get across half court and do this for my team.
That's amazing. I think what's probably amazing, probably the big story is, being an 8th grader. We talked to, before we got going in here, being in middle school. Talk to us a little bit about what it's like to be an 8th grader playing with girls that are basically 4 years older, that are seniors. I mean, different levels of maturity, and being in that locker room, and then of course taking that to the state level and seeing the success. But has it been a tough time adjusting as an 8th grader to that level? I mean, you're having to move down the hall, I guess, down the street, but what's it like being an 8th grader playing with a bunch of, junior and senior girls?
I mean, yeah, it was a big change, but having AAU also helped, and having good teammates that would tell me what I need to do better, and knowing that if I make mistakes, I just gotta fix them. And it doesn't really matter your age, I would say, honestly. And just my teammates helped me, I would say, and just being an 8th grader it is hard, I will say that, but you get through it.
Absolutely.
I got to ask one question about your AAU coach. Is that Coach Bell? Is that right?
Yes, I have 2, actually.
Okay, so, I think they probably deserve a little credit, and including your high school coach. Tell us a little bit about your the 3 coaches, and, what they've done for you and got, to prepare you for that moment, or the whole moment. We obviously hit the big shot against Jamestown, but
I've been with Ernest since kindergarten, and he's pushed me, and he's been in big games. He was overseas, so he knows the game. And I also have a Minnesota coach, which played D1 and overseas, and then I have Coach Schwartz, which has coached a lot of years, and they just help me work on things I need to work on, my shot, dribbling, everything, and just give me enough confidence to do things.
So after a big championship now, what's next now for the off season? Because obviously that expectations are going to ride you out, and usually it's a year or 2 if you've won one when you're in a sophomore, junior. But now you got to deal with this for at least another 3-4 more years. But do you take a break now and just get excited, or do you already hit the summer months, or what? Or do you play in other sports, or what are you doing? And what's your preparation here now that the season's over?
I'm taking a week off just to rest, and I'm going to hit practices, and I have some tournaments, AAU summer coming up, which will be very fun, with my Minot team and Minnesota team. And then I'll do summer high school things with my team too.
So do you play only basketball, or do you do any other sports, cross country to get fit, or is it just basketball?
Mostly basketball, but I also do swimming.
Oh, right on.
So it's just swimming that help you with your fitness, you think?
Yeah, it keeps me in shape and it loosens my legs a lot.
Well, good.
I like that. Mine's got a dominant swimming program, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yes, they do.
Tell us a little bit about how far away you travel and some of these faraway tournaments. Coach Riggs and I are former college coaches, and we've talked at great length about the East being stronger in a lot of sports because they get into Minneapolis a lot easier than the West. The West tends to just play the small towns in the West. And I've always told, like the soccer community and whatnot, you got to travel if you want to do well in state when you want to go play those schools in the East. So tell people about where you go, how far you travel. I mean, I think we'd like to hear that.
I do go to a lot of Minnesotas, and like I've gone to Florida a couple times, Iowa, and like this year I'll be going to Chicago and Milwaukee and Kentucky. So that will be fun. And I just try to let all my skill out on other places other than just North Dakota.
Are most of the girls on your team, are they from the area here? Do you pick up girls from all over the state, or where's the roster made?
My Minot team usually just goes to Minnesota, but me and Lily Bell are on the Minnesota team, so we go to a lot of the far away together.
Right on.
You got to go see the Bean if you go to Chicago. You got to get a picture at the Bean. That's pretty cool. I don't know why it's
I'll
there,
try to remember that.
but it's a big, big bean in the middle of the city, and there's thousands of people taking a picture in front of it. It seems like a...
All right.
Well, good. Well, Maggie, any other questions, Spainer?
No, just an absolute
Proud of you.
proud. It was just an
Awesome.
awesome moment to watch. It was like, I mean, you know, I always come up with, you know, different things. It reminded me of when, and you weren't necessarily scoring a million points. It was just the kind of the warrior attitude. But it reminded me of Jordan dropping 50 on the Jazz when everyone thought the Bulls were dead when he had the flu. He dropped. You just looked like you were about to drop tired at any moment, and just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, and it was just awesome to watch as a a sports fan.
And I really liked it because Spainer said, take Century, and I'm taking them over the field. That's what he said last week. So, Maggie, I'm letting him eat some crow over here for making him, go back. But you know what? I'll tell you this. Kind of think about the guys' team as kind of in the last few years, just with their success and the 3 in the rows and all that sort of thing. I absolutely love the fact that you've shined a light on girls basketball in Minot High, and the Jets are going to be excited. And I know the expectations are going to be high, but you guys are going to be a fun team to watch as you guys grow. So we wish you.
Oh, real quick, just something happened yesterday.
Boy. What's that?
Logan Nissly committed to Nebraska yesterday. Did you see that? You did.
Yes, I did.
And I'm extending this, but I mean, how does that feel knowing you just beat a future Big Ten basketball player?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's a phenomenal player all around, off and on the court, and like it's well deserved. And like I know potentially I could get there, and I look up to her.
She's so smooth, so skilled. She was fun to watch as well.
Yes.
And Nebraska's getting a good one.
Good.
So.
Well, right on. Well, thanks, Maggie. We appreciate it. We definitely will be in touch, and we'll be following your journey. And thanks for stopping by and taking some time chatting with us.
Thanks a lot, kid.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, here we are. We're talking GOAT Talk. We're talking soccer or football, as our guest from last week had alluded to from England. Obviously, this is your, what would you call your expertise area of soccer, but it's the GOAT Talk, and there's a little bit of, talk about guys a little older, a little bit newer. But we got a couple pretty good names. I mean, obviously people that are newer remember, of course, know Messi and Ronaldo from Portugal. I like the Ronaldo from Brazil. That one was a big one. And I'm a big France fan with Zinedine Zidane, but I don't think they make it to that list. But what are your thoughts on the GOAT and Mr. Soccer? And probably have a feeling there's a little Argentinian flavor into this. What are your thoughts?
Well, your Babe Ruth is Pelé, right?
Yeah.
So you got Pelé, you got Maradona. who's probably, the greatest in my childhood generation. I mean, he made England look like a U12 team, just dribbling around him and scoring at will, in a World Cup. I've never seen anything like that. And then obviously you got Messi. Brazilian Ronaldo has the most goals in World Cup history. Him and Miroslav Klose from Germany.
Deutschland.
I like Gary Lineker from, England, Tottenham, but he's not on that list.
Oh boy, I tell you.
Gareth Bale, now we're just talking Tottenham's all-time greatest. Pele, Maradona won one World Cup, super dominant. Messi has done stuff that no one's ever done. This modern game, it's different, you know what I mean? But he's never really got it done at the World Cup level. And Pele, he's the Babe Ruth.
You talk about how we talk about NFL, how these quarterbacks were super good during the season but never won a whole bunch of Super Bowls, but yet, do they get slighted for it? But of course, the same thing happens in soccer, of course.
And it maybe shouldn't impact them as much in soccer because the World Cup's every 4 years. And you had the Spanish golden generation during, Messi's run. I don't know. Pele won a bunch of World Cups, and I don't know. He was just so much better than everyone in his time.
Now, of course, I'm no soccer expert. Of course, follow it and stuff like that. But, in soccer, with such low scoring games having such an impact on it, is there any players in the game of soccer that were defenders or keepers that could potentially rise up? Like in hockey, as an example, everybody looks at Gretzky and stuff like that, but goaltenders have played a huge part of winning Stanley Cups and those type of things. Is there anybody in soccer, that played on some teams that were just stout defensively?
Paolo Maldini is probably one of the greatest defenders of all time, and Vincent Kompany running Man City for so long, was very good.
And then here's the other question. Soccer, we all know what World Cup is and what it means to the world, of course, but there's a lot of focus on, the Champions League and the Premiership and stuff like that, and some of the best players to play at that necessarily don't play very well at World Cup. So, it
really comes down to probably Messi and Pele, and it comes down to, do you weigh down that World Cup achievements or Messi just being so dominant for so long? It's interesting. I'll say this though, if you look at standings, NFL, baseball, NBA, it's done by winning percentage, which comes out, if you equate it to soccer points, 2 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, 0 points for a loss. Soccer is weighted 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie. So tying hurts. It's almost like a loss. So, when you look at value, it swings heavily toward players that can get it in the net, can score goals, over defenders. So that's probably, why your GOAT talk's going to be centered around the players that just generate 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, 3 points over and over and over, especially in a World Cup when it's a 4-team pool and then all of a sudden it's knockout time. You know what I mean? You can't lose. So I don't know. I would lean on Pele, but, I would say, like most of my assistant coaches over the years, and they're younger, they say Lionel Messi. So
Well, the question is do you, is GOAT talk right now, but, does the Portugal Ronaldo, we talked about it off air about, they're kind of playing in the same era, but if Ronaldo continues, if Messi retires, and if there's a gap there is there a chance to catch up, or it's not even in the discussion?
I think Ronaldo's been a close second, but Messi's played for Barcelona, and they've just been just super dominant for a long time. I think it's Pele, Messi. This one's going to probably generate a lot of hate.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear from everyone else.
I would too. But absolutely, I'd want to know what's going on, because I think it's pretty debatable. I think the problem is there's a lot of history with people who are diehard soccer fans that I know history like you do, but the current how soccer has really evolved and became a really popular sport now. We're talking MLS has certainly got a lot better, World Cup numbers. In Canada, they've got their professional leagues going, and then at the youth level, which we've talked a lot about, youth numbers have exploded in North America, particularly in Canada. I mean, you think about hockey being the number one sport in Canada, and you go into Saskatoon, where I'm from, where historically there's 8-9 rinks, and we've got NHL players galore. But if you look right now at youth numbers in the city of Saskatoon, I bet you're probably about 3,000-4,000 youth hockey players, and then there's probably 8,000 youth soccer players now. And so I have a feeling here in the next decade, I feel like, especially with the success of Canada's, World Cup aspirations, I think we're going to see, that potentially soccer is going to pass hockey as the favorite sport. I mean, especially to get to the World Cup. I mean, we talk about the NFL and the Super Bowl, and what were the ratings for the Super Bowl? Like 150 million people watched it. Like, how many people watch a World Cup game? Like, it's like 1.5 billion. It's unbelievable.
The Women's World Cup's bigger than the Super Bowl II worldwide as well. But
absolutely. Do you have a GOAT girl? Women's soccer player? Mia Hamm? That one?
What's funny is, Marta's the most skilled of all time. She's the best footballer, pure footballer. And a player that I didn't much like as a player, just because the women's game's so different, she's so big, was Abby Womback. I mean, she just scored, and you couldn't stop. You just hit it over everyone's head, she'd jump up and head it in. Mm-hmm. That becomes...
What about Canadian Christine Sinclair?
She's good.
She was good.
University of Portland grad there. She's really good.
She carried it.
Played for the old Clive Charles.
Big news. Yep, absolutely. No. It's going to be interesting. I don't know. I think we got to ask the people here because it's...
I'm torn. It really comes down to their comments.
Okay, I agree with that. I'm kind of... We'll see what our demographic of our listeners, because we'd really like to know, especially if we got a lot of younger ones. If you follow our TikToks, you know that for sure. But who's your GOAT? Soccer GOAT? Let us know, and we want to find out because we are torn.
Thanks for watching another great episode of Spainer and Riggs, brought to you by the Dakota Network. We celebrate Lions around here, and we're looking forward to the upcoming week of watching some state Class B boys basketball at the Minot State Dome. See you next week.